In a story post Dragon Ball Super Moro, Goku has since relished in the peace of the universe after the battle, but 3 years have gone by since the Moro disaster, and in that time, Goku has found himself on planet Vampa much more than usual as he goes and trains with Broly, turning him into a calculated martial artist now. This is an original fan-written story called Dragon Ball Super Broly vs Jiren by Monty Jarman and takes place in the more peaceful times post Dragon Ball Super. With Goku having ascended Ultra Instinct and all the training he's done in this time, in a one-on-one battle he would have surpassed Broly at this point, who was unusually more powerful than him prior, even as a Super Saiyan Blue. While Goku's goal was to train Broly and make him an incredibly strong sparring partner, the same training tactics day in and day out are sure to get boring eventually, and that's pretty much what happens to Goku as our story begins amidst planet Vampa. If you haven't already, be sure to have those notifications turned on to never miss an upload as soon as they go live, and if you've been enjoying all of the loads of anime content recently, consider leaving a like on this video as well, it really helps out a ton. Be sure to follow on both Twitch and Twitter to stay up with me and all anime related content, but without further ado, for the first time in years, we find ourselves scoping the landscape of none other than planet Vampa, a planet that only 3 people call their home. Thunderous impacts are heard in the distance as it sounds like a lightning storm is roaring. However, as we move closer, we see Goku in his Super Saiyan God form get absolutely decked in the face and sent flying through a cliff. As he gets back to his feet and looks into the distance, we can see his opponent is none other than Broly in his Wrath form, who's holding yet another attack for Goku as they spar on. Broly launches his attack at a blinding speed, and as it nears Goku, he seems like he won't be able to dodge it in time as it closes in. "This is amazing," he says as he raises his arm to shield himself. "His battle power has increased a lot. If I'm not careful, this could be trouble." The blast makes a direct hit on Goku as an explosion erupts across the battlefield. Broly looks on, knowing that this would never be enough to defeat Goku as he anxiously awaits his next move. Goku bursts from the smoke at full speed, now in his Super Saiyan Blue form, as he charges at Broly, who looks to meet him head on. As Goku throws a punch, Broly does as well, as a devastating shockwave is about to be unleashed on the planet, but then, "That's quite enough," a voice says right before they make impact. Both Broly and Goku's attacks have been stopped with a single finger, as we see Whis of all people has appeared before them now. "That was much too intense to be just a regular sparring match," Whis says, as they both power back down to their base forms. "Are you two trying to destroy the very planet we're on?" "Sorry, Whis," Goku replies, smiling ear to ear. "You know how excited I get when I fight really strong guys." However, Whis continues, "Broly's power has increased dramatically since the last time you fought on Earth. I'm impressed with his growth." This is when an idea springs in Goku's head, as he says, "Hey," grabbing everyone's attention. "It wouldn't be fair if Broly just fights me all the time," he goes on. "There's so many strong fighters in the universe. I wonder how he'll fare against someone like, say, Jiren." Goku's bright idea seems to be to set Broly up in some type of exhibition match against Jiren now, in order to test just how much he's actually grown, since it's kind of hard to see that by fighting the same person all the time. "Oh yeah," Whis agrees. "That would be an interesting choice indeed." The two Lord Zenos have been pretty bored since the ending of the Tournament of Power, so this could be very exciting for the two of them. "Wow," Goku exclaims, getting excited all over again. "I can imagine both Jiren and Broly in the same tournament. It gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. The possibilities are just endless." "Says who?" a voice yells over all the commotion from nearby. "Who said anything about a tournament?" Chile says after arriving with Limo. "You're forgetting that I only allowed you to train with Broly. Do you take me for a fool, Goku?" Both Goku and Broly freeze up at the surprise interruption as Goku begins to stutter, but this is when Whis cuts in. "Apparently Broly is a big boy," he says snarkishly, "so he's old enough to make his own decisions." "Well, Broly," Goku asks, looking at him now, "do you want to join or no?" Broly ponders Goku's offer, but only momentarily, as he eventually shakes his head in agreement. Great, Goku says excitedly. Now all that's left is Jiren's answer. He places his finger to his forehead as he begins to track Jiren's ki. Convincing Jiren won't be a picnic, he says. Now, if only I could get a lock onto him. Found you, he says, finally detecting Jiren's energy somewhere in the far-off realms of the 11th universe. Wish me luck, guys, he says, as in a flash, Goku's instant transmission warps him across universes. Somewhere far off in the regions of Universe 11 stands Jiren, alone on a heap of planet in the middle of space. As Jiren meditates, he too recognizes the rapidly approaching ki. What brings you here, he says, finally breaking the silence. He turns around and is confronted by his former opponent, Goku. It's been a while, Jiren, Goku says, greeting him. Have you been training? Obviously you didn't come all the way here just to start a conversation with me, Jiren says, short of patience, so get straight to the point. This is when Goku goes on to tell him that he knows this person that's really strong and that they've been training together like crazy lately. But I'm anxious to know what his full capabilities are, Goku continues. Jiren seems unmoved so far, but continues to listen. His name is Broly, Goku says, and he's a Saiyan just like me. I want to know if you're down to have a fight with him in a tournament setting. Jiren glares at Goku suspiciously, who is preparing for the worst. Jiren turns back around as he answers, your offer is tempting, Goku, but I'll have to decline. I was afraid you'd say no, Goku says, hanging his head. Jiren pauses for a brief moment and then says, I do still owe you one from the tournament, however. We wouldn't be here right now if it weren't for your universe's wish. I'm more than grateful. You don't owe me anything, Goku replies. I just like fighting strong people. Jiren smirks at the sound of this, and this is when he goes on to say, if you really want to hear my answer, Goku, then my answer is yes, as he agrees to the dream match against Broly. Really? Goku says happily. Thanks, Jiren. All the info about the tournament will be out soon enough, so until then, just train and I'll worry about training Broly. See you at the tournament, Goku says as he excitedly heads back to Universe 7 to share the news. Train all you like, Jiren says, showing a confident smile on his face. I won't be holding back either. And then the next episode of Dragon Ball Super Broly vs Jiren, the day of the tournament arrives. In a similar setting to the Universe 6 vs 7 tournament, lay the arena for the next multiversal Shin Budokai, with the main event being Broly and Jiren. All of the spectators have arrived as we see the Universe 7 crowd of Chile, Beerus, Whis, and Goku, followed by Universe 11 with Velmod and Margarita. In the arena stands the two combatants, Broly toe-to-toe with Jiren the Grey, glaring at each other pretty menacingly. Sorry to keep you all waiting, the Grand Priest says, appearing in the sky above them. You two seem to be the only participants in attendance. The Lord of Everything is about to appear, so please show them your utmost respect. The two Lord Zenos then arrive with their guards, greeting everyone gathered there today, as Chile is more overtaken with how cute they are than their standing and power, causing Beerus to bark at her in fear of her upsetting them. The tournament will begin momentarily, the Grand Priest announces. I will now present both fighters on stage. The pride of Universe 11, Jiren the Grey, up against one of the sole survivors of the Saiyan race, Planet Vampa's Broly. I'll explain the rules once more, the Grand Priest goes on. There will be approximately 125 tags to decide the winner. Hopefully that's enough, but it may be wavered if Zeno-sama calls for it. 125 tags? Goku curiously says, to which Whis answers, converts to about 1 hour Earth time. This tournament, however, the Grand Priest announces, will now turn into a death match. The winner will be granted a wish from the Super Dragon Balls. This is when the expression changes though. However, he goes on, the loser will cease to exist immediately. So much so that the Super Dragon Balls will have no effect on the outcome. This stands as a shock to both Broly and Jiren, who thought they were just agreeing to an exhibition match, but now that Zeno is here, there's no turning back. Well then, are you ready? The Grand Priest asked. All around the stadium, Velmod, Chile, and the others are all rooting for their fighter. However, even given the stakes, Goku just seems more excited than anything, as the Grand Priest then begins the battle. Jiren beckons for Broly to come give it his best shot, to which Broly obliges, immediately going into his wrath state and charging at Jiren. His first attack looks to hit Jiren head on, who doesn't even budge at first, and as Broly's punch nears, he dodges it with swift ease. The two go back and forth, with Broly giving it everything he has. However, Jiren is reading him like a book and countering all of his attacks. As they come to a stalemate again, Jiren seems disappointed as he asks Broly, "Is this the best you're capable of?" Broly immediately opens his mouth to reveal an energy wave being prepared, to the shock of Jiren, who didn't expect such an attack. As the blast obliterates a portion of the stadium, it beams into space before exploding, with everyone looking on in amazement at the level these two are fighting at. Jiren has taken the blast head on though, and it looks like it was relatively ineffective, as Goku can't believe that he doesn't even have a scratch on it. Saiyan Warrior, "Is that the best you've got?" Jiren asks, as Broly charges at him again. "If so, then you leave me no choice." As Broly throws his next punch, Jiren ducks under it, but this time, instead of evading, he counterattacks at a speed Broly is unable to react to. With this double strike fist attack, Jiren has done devastating damage to Broly without so much as a mark on him, as Chile's eyes grow wide in shock at what they see next. With enough force, Jiren's strike penetrates deep into Broly's torso, and the result is this. This attack aims to damage the internal organs, leaving the surface untouched. Broly nearly blacks out from pain as he's brought to the ground by a single strike from Jiren. As he reverts to his base form, Broly collapses at Jiren's feet, to the shock of everyone in the crowd, assuming the worst now. "Stand up right now, Broly," Chile yells from the stands. "Would you really show yourself like this in front of your wife?" Broly struggles to regain himself, however the damage has already been done. "Let's not beat around the bush here," Jiren says, standing over him, preparing one final attack. "It's time that I end this." If I really die here, Broly thinks to himself in these final moments, who will protect planet Vampa? Who will look after? But Jiren has his set sights on finishing this battle as he releases his final attack. All of a sudden, Broly erupts in rage as his power explodes across the battlefield, remembering just what and who he's fighting for now. Jiren is taken aback by this drastic change all of a sudden, as Broly's power erupts into the sky, getting bigger by the second. As Jiren backs off to watch what's going on with Broly, his expression becomes increasingly intense after seeing his transformation. Broly has undergone that exact same dreadful Super Saiyan form that he used against Gogeta. Jiren is shocked at this extreme transformation and frighteningly steep power increase, as Goku recognizes that this is no longer a sparring match. Things have taken a turn for the worse because Broly still hasn't mastered that form. What could have triggered this, Goku thinks to himself. "Well, what do you think, my lord?" Whis asks, as Beerus has never seen Broly like this before. Beerus's jaw drops as he exclaims, This Saiyan's power, could it be that he's stronger than all of the gods of destructions?" Beerus stutters. With this reaction, it almost seems as if this was sort of what Beerus was hoping for when he first started searching for the Super Saiyan God, but that is another story. Jiren looks to be at a loss now as to how to approach this battle, but Velmont roars at him to quit daydreaming and hurry up and get serious. Jiren begins to power up as well as he tells Broly, "Since you've shown me your true power, things are finally becoming interesting." After powering up, he charges at Broly, now on the offensive, but Broly just stands there. As Jiren puts everything he has into this next punch, he hits Broly square in the face, but it does nothing. Jiren is stunned, but before he can react, Broly lunges, grabbing Jiren by the face and then slams him into the ground with brutal power, shattering a portion of the stadium along the way. Jiren struggles to break his grip, but this is when Broly releases him and leaps into the sky, then in one monstrous dive, soars into the stadium and Jiren with a crushing punch that destroys half the stadium and stuns Jiren to his core. Due to Broly's transformation into his sort of rage Super Saiyan, I guess, he was able to regenerate all of the damage from Jiren's last attack, healing him completely along with this massive power up. As Jiren is sent soaring across the arena, Goku's jaw drops at just how truly powerful Broly actually is when pushed to his limits. "Unreal," he says. "Could Broly's power really be that far beyond Jiren's?" This is when Velmont gets to his feet and begins screaming at Jiren, reminding him what losing this battle here will mean. "Everything that you stand for will die here along with you," he shouts angrily. Do you really want that? All that I stand for, Jiren says, struggling to get back to his feet. As long as I have Universe 11 by my side in spirit, I couldn't possibly lose to anyone, he roars, as Jiren's power explodes as well. Broly is the one taken aback this time, as Jiren's transformation has completely changed him as well. Both fighters glare at each other as their full powers are at their maximum now. Broly's rage continues as he roars and then charges at Jiren, with Jiren doing the same, and as the two clash fists for the first time at their full power, the chapter ends with a crack in reality beginning to surface from just a single collision. The collision sets off a piercing shockwave from the intense amounts of power these two possess. The spectators all have to be shielded by the angels or be completely obliterated by the force of these two attacks. What incredible energy, Goku struggles to say as the force of the shockwave threatens to sweep him away as well. I'm not sure if my body can take it. As the blinding light begins to disappear, Goku has to undergo even his Super Saiyan Blue form just to withstand the shockwave, but when he returns to the battlefield, he notices that the entire stage has been destroyed in the outcome. What's even more concerning, he says to himself as he powers back down, is that their ki is untraceable now. Could it be that they're both dead? That's unlikely to be the case, a voice says from behind him. He turns around to find Whis currently protecting the other spectators, as Whis goes on to tell him that, to put it in simplest terms, they're currently fighting in another dimension. This causes both Goku and Chile to freak out, as anything can happen now with those two going full force. The Grand Priest cuts in to explain that both of their powers were so great that their collision broke the boundaries of this realm, thus transporting them to another dimension in the process. The two Zenos begin to become upset as they ask how they're supposed to watch the fight now and how exciting it was just starting to get. No worries, my lord, the Grand Priest replies, and then he raises his hand into the air and creates a giant clear orb in the sky. It's enormous, Goku comments as the rest look on in anticipation. We can watch the match in this massive orb, the Grand Priest says. No matter how far they may go, this tournament is still in session. There are still 95 attacks left, he explains, as we begin to cut into the new dimension Broly and Jiren are fighting in. Time is not on their side. Anything can happen in the blink of an eye, as we now cut to Jiren, whose intense glares batters Broly with an overwhelming swarm of attacks. Broly doesn't let up, however, as Jiren's attack pummels him, but this is when Jiren ducks under him, pushing himself off the ground and sticks both of his feet squarely to Broly's face. To finish him off, Jiren launches Energy Blast from the base of his feet directly in Broly's face, sending him soaring until he smacks into sort of a wall encasing the dimension, and it begins to shatter. Jiren doesn't ease up for a second, however, and charges at Broly, assuming him to be incapacitated, but Broly's eyes rip open with rage, almost freezing Jiren in his tracks. He punches an incoming Jiren with a fresh burst of power, and as Jiren stands stunned from the power behind his punch, Broly lets off another Energy Blast. Jiren, with incredible speed, is able to dodge the point-blank attack as he flies into the sky above. As he soars above Broly, Jiren releases a counter beam of his own directly below him at Broly, who doesn't look like he plans on dodging at all. Broly releases a mouth beam in order to clash with Jiren's attack, and the two blasts collide, illuminating this entire side of the galaxy. As the beam clash continues to grow bigger, Goku is stunned at just how truly powerful these two are today, with the both of them going their absolute hardest right now. Both Broly and Jiren expended incredible amounts of power as their beams collide, but eventually, the attacks do die down, leaving the two evenly matched once again after a huge explosion goes off. As the two fly across from each other, Jiren, for the first time, praises Broly on his skill. Impressive, he goes on. Not only that you're adapting quickly, but your power is as well. It's hard to believe Son Goku trained you. As Broly continues being consumed by his rage and ever-increasing power, Jiren enters a state of complete calmness. It's time that I now show you my true power, he says as his eyes close. This is it, Velmont says, who was waiting to see if this moment would present itself in this battle. This is Jiren's final trump card. Jiren's eyes burst open with a silver glow as, for the first time ever, and to the shock of Broly and everyone around him for that matter, Jiren is now capable of Ultra Instinct as well. A perfectly balanced mind, body, and spirit now would send Jiren far past what any of them were prepared to see today, as Goku, Beerus, and even Whis' jaws drop in amazement. Bear witness, Velmont says. pleased but still looking slightly nervous for some reason, to Jiren's version of Ultra Instinct. Oh wow, both of the Zenos call it in unison. Amazing! Now that Jiren has entered the state among the gods themselves and mastered Ultra Instinct, Broly's chances of survival are slipping away the longer he allows Jiren to keep powering up. As a new chapter begins in this historic battle that's now escalated to Ultra Instinct Jiren versus Super Broly, the two warriors stand across from each other before their next engagement begins. As the two glare at one another, Goku comments about how it really is no surprise that Jiren pulled off something like this. Seeing Goku unlock a power beyond his own must have been his motivation, Whis says, as Velmont comments that Jiren was already close. All he needed was a little bit of control. The raging heat that once swirled within him has now been tamed, and now Jiren has complete control. Darn, Beerus starts. Another mortal achieves this state before me, he says in annoyance. The two Zenos seem to be enjoying the fight, at least, that they now all spectate safely from the origin of the tournament through an orb that the Grand Priest created. As we cut back to the battle, Broly's power erupts once more as he releases a barrage of blasts from his aura at Jiren, who continues to glare. Jiren doesn't move a muscle as the attacks close in, and this is when they explode. All of a sudden, in an instant, Jiren has appeared right in Broly's face. So Broly attempts to smash his head in between his hands, but Jiren avoids this as well with incredible and untraceable speed. An excruciating amount of pain begins to display itself on Broly's face as we see that Jiren has now phased behind him, almost as if walking directly through him. With a hand to his side that we never saw move, Jiren clenches his fist and, using an attack similar to what Goku used on him in the tournament, the entirety of all damage dealt on Broly's body in those milliseconds prior is released all at once, contorting his body and nearly taking him out. This is when Jiren appears in front of him again, holding his outstretched palm to his face, and as he looks to finish this fight, he releases another point-blank energy blast right in Broly's face. A helpless Broly is sent flying by Jiren's attack, as the extent of Jiren's power is enough to continuously send cracks throughout the dimension. Jiren must have been training even harder than we have, Goku says, watching the battle in awe but never expecting Jiren to take control to this degree. This could be really bad, especially for Broly, Whis adds. Velmont, however, doesn't find this outcome surprising at all, as this is Jiren we're talking about here. Jiren flies across from where Broly is finally landed as he awaits for him to make his next move. This is when an explosion sets off from Broly's location as he bursts into the sky, soaring above them. Jiren seems rather unbothered still as he turns around to notice Broly in the sky. However, something is happening to Broly. His energy is ramping even more uncontrollably than before. Broly heaves and pants as his aura resonates around him almost like a barrier, but he's becoming even more exhausted by the looks of it, and it would seem his wound is even opened back up. You seem to be lacking quite a bit of composure, Jiren says to him after observing Broly's fighting style over the course of the fight. You have immense power, and yet, you have no idea how to properly control it. But know this, he goes on in an increasingly serious tone. You will never triumph over me. These words echoed in Broly's unstable mind, coupled with the nightmarish thoughts of losing everything, completely snapped something within him as he spirals into an uncontrollable rage, with Jiren just looking on. His power increases even more, but Broly's overflowing might is slowly changing him into something else. The piercing light from his energy illuminates the entire orb that the spectators were watching them in, as the entire climate of their battle begins to shift and everything seems to be orbiting around Broly. With the smoke and debris finally dying down, Jiren looks on as Broly's transformation comes to a completion. In an absolute fit of rage that could only be enticed with a power such as Ultra Instinct, Broly has gone far beyond even the monstrous power he possessed prior, and transformed into a fully powered legendary Super Saiyan 3. With a new look coupled along with a new frightening amount of power that could overwhelm that of the gods, Broly's transformation completely astonishes Goku. That transformation, Whis begins to comment, it lacks control, but that amount of power could compete with even the angels. You could merge with anyone, he says, looking at Goku. Even potentially fusing with my father may have no threat to this kind of power. Goku's initial reaction to hearing this statement is about the same as anyone else's would be hearing this, that Broly with his own Saiyan power and untrained by the gods at all, now rivals those very deities. Broly begins to descend back to the ground as he lands before Jiren with an enormous thud. He slowly gets to his feet, standing across the single strongest opponent he's ever faced, and to be able to push him to this level, but even with the power that rivals that of the angels now, Broly will need much more than raw strength to overcome the divine technique that is Ultra Instinct. Jiren continues to firmly stand his ground as the chapter comes to an end, with Broly charging at his opponent. To think that Broly still had this much more potential, this much more power, is absolutely mind-boggling. Ultra Instinct at first was thought to be the pinnacle, but now, as a mere training tool to push this Saiyan warrior over the edge, and now, we truly get to see what a full-power Super Saiyan 3 Broly with his limits completely shattered can do against a man who was already perceived as stronger than a god. This ungodly amount of power that Broly has now broken through with would be enough to even overwhelm the gods to a point, as Whis agrees. However, Jiren hasn't moved a muscle ever since witnessing this form. As Broly charges at Jiren again, he reels back with an explosive punch ready to be launched. This is when Jiren finally opens his eyes again, and with the power of Ultra Instinct behind him, he once again clashes fists with a new powered up Broly, and the result is stunning. Again, due to the devastating pressure of all of their power, Broly and Jiren completely shatter the dimensional barrier separating realms and disappear once again. These guys are insane, Goku comments. It's just like when me and Vegeta did the fusion dance against Broly. Breaking through different dimensions is proof that mortals can achieve levels that rival the Hakaishin, Whis says, agreeing. This is certainly getting more and more interesting. Although we understand the stakes at hand and the level of power we're witnessing, Chile doesn't really get what's happening, but all she can do is pray that Broly comes out on top. The two Zenos seem to be enjoying the battle again as well, fiending to be closer to the fight again. This is magnificent, the Grand Priest thinks to himself. These mortals. Yes, my lord, he says, snapping out of it as Zeno wishes for a better view. Just a second. The Grand Priest extends his arms out to the sides, and all of a sudden, the spectators begin to transport away again. When he raises his arms, they all vanish as they teleport for a better but still safe view of the battle. Back on the battlefield, Broly and Jiren are colliding with strength beyond the gods and looking pretty evenly matched for the time being as well. Jiren dodges an onslaught of Broly's punches, ducking under him for a counterattack again, and this is when he's able to hit him with another double fist strike, the technique that shattered his internal organs before. As his attack makes contact, Broly's head drops. However, something is different this time. He begins to raise his head as Jiren notices his attack did negligible damage this time, but before he can escape, Broly grabs him by the shoulders. He swings his head back and delivers a powerful headbutt to Jiren, sending more cracks throughout the dimension again. As Jiren is sent flying, Broly's rage continues to climb as he roars while creating a giant energy blast from the center of his body. Jiren halts himself as Broly readies his attack, and then he launches a massive energy sphere with the full power of his Saiyan might. Jiren stands before this attack looking to take it head on again as he shuts his eyes, and then they rip open, revealing that same icy glare. As the attack nears, Broly is stunned to see his blast grow smaller and smaller until, upon reaching Jiren, he easily deflects it with the back of his hand, sending it ricocheting back to Broly. In the blink of an eye, Broly's attack is hurled back at him in a much more concentrated form, causing an explosion on impact that lights up this entire side of the galaxy. As the spectators near the new battlefield again, as they fly, something seems to be increasingly stressing Goku. Something bothering you? Whis asks him, noticing this as well. He's disappointed in himself, Belmont comments. He realized that these two have surpassed what he's capable of without using Ultra Instinct. I'm not so sure about that, Whis says. Knowing Son Goku, this just may be the motivation he needs to ascend higher than Mastered Ultra Instinct, but what could possibly be higher than mastering Ultra Instinct? I wonder, he goes on. Super Saiyan? Don't be so silly, Whis, Beerus cuts in. Ultra Instinct is a level that seemingly even gods can't achieve, but these mortals can? What could possibly be higher than this, he says. Goku, with all of these conversations going in one ear and out the other, only has one concern on his mind right now though, and that's Broly. I've got a bad feeling about this, he says to himself as they continue to travel. but his presumptions may be far worse than he realizes as the Grand Priest announces that they finally arrived. As their high-speed travel comes to a stop, Goku is shocked to see the result of such a high-level battle with nearly everything in this vacuum of space having been completely destroyed. Sensing their power levels, Goku whips his head around to see a blinding light in the distance as Jiren charges at Broly once again as the battle rages on. On the opposite side, Goku notices another blinding light, this one being Broly, who looks far different than he ever did in their battle, continuing to improve throughout this battle. Broly's power and speed all of a sudden take everyone by surprise as both Jiren and Goku are shocked as he appears right in front of Jiren's face. Jiren attempts to counter with a punch of his own, but Broly obliterates him with a single hit. Jiren is sent soaring across space, and in the process, Broly's insane strength seems to have knocked him into his base form as well. Jiren, Velmont shouts, as even Margarita is stunned to see him like this. Beerus isn't so certain though, as he says that Broly may have knocked him out of Ultra Instinct, but that doesn't mean anything until this battle is over. Broly's amazing, Zeno says, as the other agrees, commenting about how Jiren was knocked out as well. Well, the Grand Priest says, this match seems to have many surprises. I can't quite call it yet, my lord, he says, as we cut back to Jiren laying silently on the ground. This Saiyan, Jiren says to himself. Why is he so different from the others? How is he able to adapt and gain so much power? Jiren attempts to get back up, but this is when Broly starts to prepare yet another attack, but this one is unbelievable. Broly's energy sphere grows to the size of a planet over his head as Goku says, holy, is he really about to launch that? Broly hurdles this planet-sized attack at Jiren, who still sits on the ground below, causing Velmont to yell, commanding him to get up. Even Chile freaks out, telling Broly he'll destroy them all with something like that. It can't be helped, Whis says. Broly can't show mercy anymore, even if he desires. His body is fighting like a machine, using all of the muscle memory acquired from Jiren. Broly's body has taken over and his mind can't control the beast he's become. Jiren lays with his eyes still closed as he says to himself, all this blind rage, this power, my power, is absolute, he roars, as his eyes rip open once again with him standing in the face of Broly's attack. In an instant, an attack that could devastate the entire universe is reduced to nothing by Jiren with some mysterious new power. As we cut back to Jiren, his entire demeanor has changed as his power has reached a level freezing Broly to his core. Jiren has completely transformed to a level only achievable beyond Ultra Instinct as Broly panics. Jiren's glare has become as cold as stone as he locks onto Broly from being completely awoken by his own pride and willpower to be the strongest. This is Jiren ascended past Ultra Instinct. As Jiren stands before Broly with his new power radiating around the entire battlefield, his entire demeanor has changed thanks to being pushed to the absolute brink by Broly. Broly is shocked to see his attack completely erased as Goku comments that he's finally done it. I can sense it, he says, but this is different. He's tapped into something and it isn't pretty. It seems as though Jiren has broken through his shell again, Whis comments. This time, there will be no setbacks. Broly has to go all out or this won't end well. Velmont is sweating before the overwhelming power that Jiren now possesses that he honestly didn't think could get any higher, as he says, you've already surpassed the gods once, Jiren, and now you're on a completely different level again. This is amazing, Zeno chimes in. Jiren looks so different. Broly hesitates, sensing something much different about Jiren as well, who then goes on to provoke Broly, telling him to approach. He charges at Jiren with a blast in his hand, but Jiren's power has become so devastating that onlookers can barely fathom what's happening now. As Broly approaches with his attack, all of a sudden, his ki blast has disappeared as he looks at his empty hand with confusion. Behind him in the distance, we see a light resonating from Jiren's hand as he now holds Broly's previous attack as his own. Never taking his glare off Broly, Jiren crushes this attack in his hand as Broly panics once again, searching for some kind of out to this never-ending battle. I just nullified your ki blast, Jiren explains, without any particular technique that I may possess myself. The purity of this divine technique allows me to be at my peak at all times. Your most powerful attacks, he says, will no longer serve you. Now you must fight me without them. You Saiyans are indeed true warriors, but your power will never be absolute. Your rage devours you. You gain strength through anger, which is also your undoing. Now come, Saiyan, he says, for your final moment is at hand. Broly angrily charges at Jiren again, not heeding anything he just said to him, but as he throws his punch at Jiren, who still remains perfectly calm, the attack seems to just simply go through him to Broly's confusion. Jiren's aura and sheer presence take Broly aback as Goku looks on in worry as well. He tries to land a kick to Jiren's neck, but once again, it misses as Jiren's glare stays locked on. How remarkable, Margarita comments. Jiren isn't even breaking a sweat. No need to remind me, Velmont says, confident again. Broly begins forcibly exerting more power, which seems to be more detrimental than anything, as Jiren comments that he seems to be at his limit. Broly charges at Jiren again, but before he can even land his attack, he's struck in the face and gut by two unforeseeable blows. Two light speed strikes from Ascended Ultra Instinct Jiren, who has barely moved from his stance, have completely overpowered Broly, and in another show of incredible speed, Jiren strikes two more times, seemingly toying with Broly now. This enrages Goku as he yells at Jiren, asking, "Didn't you learn anything from our last fight? Give up your pride," he says. "This is about growing together." Jiren continues to pummel Broly with his high-speed attack, but with a single punch to the face, Jiren crushes Broly's jaw, dislocating it completely. A punch to the top of the head brings Broly back to the ground as he writhes in pain with his dislocated jaw. Chile, on the verge of tears now, says that she can't take much more watching this. "He can't lose like this," she says. "How edgy," Whis comments. With all of the damage Broly has accumulated, Jiren gives him a dislocated jaw. That last attack might end Broly's life. Broly continues to roar in pain, but this is when Jiren delivers another brutal strike to the chin that effectively locks Broly's jaw back in place and sends him soaring into the sky above. Broly has completely fallen out of any prior transformations and floats unconscious in space in his base form, wounded and on the very verge of death. Chile sobs as Broly floats lifelessly above them, as Whis says no matter how you look at it, Broly did a good job. That punch seems to have put his jaw back in place, Beerus says to himself, but his brain was shocked in the process. What a shame. Amidst the sadness of watching Broly fall to Jiren, Velmont roars at him to finish this and quit spacing out. "Don't forget about your wish to the Super Dragon Balls," he says. Jiren then begins to rise into the air as he says, "Saiyan Warrior, you have my gratitude for pushing me this far. Without me, you would have been the strongest mortal in the universe, but it's still much too early for you," he says as he launches himself towards Broly to deliver the finishing blow. "And that is why," he goes on, but a voice cuts in. "I will kill you right here and now, Jiren," a viciously angry voice says in front of him. A blinding light illuminates the battlefield as another transformation takes place, but this time, it isn't Broly or Jiren. Jiren's punch is stopped with a single hand as he looks up to see his new opponent. "I never expected you to interfere," he says. "Son Goku." As in the next panel, we see that Goku has transformed into Mastered Ultra Instinct as well after not being able to watch Broly suffer anymore. Jiren may have been far too powerful for a Super Saiyan to handle, but Goku also possesses the same power as him, both ascending far beyond the Ultra Instinct we once knew. As Broly remains unconscious, floating above them, Jiren demands to know why. Why has Goku interfered in this battle? "Do you doubt your student?" he says. Jiren and Goku silently glare at each other until Goku finally speaks up, saying that how can someone that's mastered Ultra Instinct not have control over their emotions? "You are about to kill out of pride," he goes on. "That's not emotional control." "You misunderstand me, son Goku," Jiren replies. "My intention was not to kill your student, but motivate him through the danger of death. I almost killed your friend, not because I wanted to, but because that is the natural order of things. I've now realized how natural the cycle is. Your friend is a raging beast. I'm in perfect control. He's far too powerful. He endangers the entire multiverse. I was made to restore balance," he goes on. "Our paths were meant to cross. It was my destiny to surpass and stop him. Just look at what I've achieved," he goes on. "This is my destiny, not pride. I am the one with great balance and the cycle of nature. I am at my peak. I can grow no more, Goku. I am the fittest, therefore I shall survive. If your student was worthy, even near death, as a Saiyan much like yourself, he should overcome the odds and break his limits. But if he dies, however, it is his destiny, just like it was yours to live. You still just don't get it, do you? Goku says, unfazed by his words. You aren't one with anything. If you were, you would realize the weight of your actions. Eventually they will come back on you. If you did succeed in mercilessly killing Broly, you would pay for it just like my ancestors. Goku then goes on to remind Jiren of the time that he had asked Goku why he fights and why he wants to be stronger. Back then, I didn't really have a good answer for you, Goku says, at least not a clear one, but I do have one now. He goes on to tell Jiren about how when he first met Broly, he didn't exactly know what to think about him, but he had faith in his potential deep down to do great things as not only a fighter, but as a person as well. It really wasn't until I started teaching him though, Goku says, that I realized that I had been a master to every opponent I faced without even trying, and teaching them to be better. Now I know though, he says, as he begins to reminisce on all of his past battles. I don't want to be the strongest in the universe just to beat people up. I want to be able to say to everyone who's doing wrong, hey, that's not right. You should stop doing that and then you can be strong like me. We can grow together. It's at this point that Broly finally begins to regain consciousness as he sees Goku standing before him in his full power. I've never hated or really wanted to hurt anyone, Goku goes on. I just want to encourage them to be better themselves, and sometimes, yeah, I do look like a fool because I think everyone deserves a chance, but everyone I've ever fought, whether they realized it or not, was my teacher and my student. To be honest, he says, if it was up to me, we would all be in a dojo learning and growing together. He goes on to tell Jiren that while he thinks he was destined for Ultra Instinct and to defeat Broly, it was actually Broly who helped him achieve that level. Just like I did with your help, Goku says to him, and now you think this is the peak of your power, right? No room to grow, so no reason to keep your opponent around? Come at me with all you've got, Jiren, and I'm gonna show you just how wrong you are as he gets into his stance. Jiren of course takes him up on this offer, eager to see if Goku is just bluffing or if he's really done it. There is no power beyond what we are now, Goku, Jiren says to him, unless you really believe that there is more than what we're currently able to achieve. There are always levels greater than what we assume is our ceiling, Jiren. Remember that, Goku says, as the battle begins between Ultra Instinct Goku and Ultra Instinct Jiren. As these two gods engage in battle, each attack is perfectly thrown but also perfectly dodged as well, rendering them almost exactly evenly matched for the time being. There's no doubt that with power like this, Jiren is the perfect opponent to discover new levels of power with, Goku says. His untold desire to always get stronger is what pushes me to find new levels beyond my own limits. The two continue to clash at breathtaking speed, sending cracks across the dimension and multiple shockwaves all over the battlefield. With each clash looking evenly matched, the two reset the battle as Jiren gives praise to Goku for also mastering this power to this extent and becoming the strongest in his universe now as well. However, he says, as he begins to get into a new stance, if you truly believe that there is more, then like during the tournament, I want you to shatter your limits once more and prove to me that the wall of power still needs to be climbed. You're not the only one who's pushed themselves beyond their limits, Jiren, Goku replies. But if you truly believe that you've reached the apex of power, then let's see just how far you can go. I'm ready. The battle begins once more with Jiren charging at Goku, who's still able to track this high-speed attack from Jiren and block his barrage. See, Goku, Jiren says confidently, there is no power beyond this. You give up too easily, Goku says as he continues to block his attacks, insulting Jiren and causing him to turn up the pressure a bit more. I wonder what Goku is so confident in, Whis mentions as they spectate the battle. What could his instinct have that Jiren's doesn't? Jiren sends Goku sliding backwards with a powerful punch as he gloats about how amazing the power of Ultra Instinct is, having honed it to this level. I'll never give up on growing, Goku replies. The day it seems like I can't get any stronger is the day that I'll just go find someone stronger and break my limits again. All of a sudden, something comes over Goku as something snaps within him. Give up on this nonsense, Goku, Jiren says as he charges at him again. I may be a martial artist, Goku says, but I'm also a Saiyan. Jiren attempts to strike Goku with the same attack he used on Broly, but a huge explosion goes off, although it's hard to tell from who exactly. As Jiren's attack makes contact, it goes directly through Goku's shirt. However, Goku himself is gone. "This power has gone straight to your head, Jiren," Goku says, reappearing in front of him with his fingers to his abdomen. "It's like I told you before," Goku says. "This isn't the right way." And his hand instantly turns into a devastating punch. Jiren is absolutely crumbled by this single attack from Goku, who, in that moment, had done the impossible. "We were destined to cross paths again, Jiren," he says, as Jiren lay breathless on the ground before him. "But unlike before," he goes on, "I pushed myself beyond my breaking point in discovering powers that I previously thought never existed." "But how?" Jiren says, stunned that Goku had once again ascended beyond him. "It's in our nature as warriors to grow," Goku says, as we see his hair is now changed as well. "To evolve and to become more than what we ever could have imagined to be." This is Ultra Instinct Super Saiyan Goku for the first time ever in a form that the gods themselves might find difficult to fathom, as Goku tells Jiren there is always going to be something more, something greater. And it was as I had told you before, Jiren, I have no limits. The gods' jaws drop as they witness Goku becoming even more divine before their very eyes. Goku is becoming a true master, Whis says, with Beerus agreeing, saying he hates to admit it, but indeed, even Velmont can't help but praise Goku. "The Saiyan isn't normal," he says. "Even now, it's like he's teaching both of them and even us." His body is instinctively activating Super Saiyan automatically to surpass Jiren's power, Whis says, explaining this phenomenon. Ultra Instinct is actually wielding Super Saiyan as the perfect counterattack. "You see, Jiren," Goku says, turning around to look at Broly, who's witnessing this for the first time as well. "There is always room for improvement." As the chapter comes to an end on a breathtaking note, Ultra Instinct Goku has gone far beyond a once-in-a-lifetime power and made something all his own once again, combining two things that only he himself wields and surpasses both Broly, Jiren, and maybe even the gods themselves in his quest for self-betterment. As the next chapter of Jiren vs Broly begins, we find ourselves entering a flashback from Broly, who is still heavily injured above the battlefield. He recalls back to his training with Goku as we see Goku in Super Saiyan Blue and Broly in his Super Saiyan form training on planet Vampa. As the two clash with each other, the collision from their fists causes shockwaves around the entire planet, but this doesn't stop Broly from going back on the attack as he roars at Goku and charges at him once more. Goku easily dodges and blocks all of Broly's attacks until finally, in an effort to stop his raging onslaught, Goku transforms once again, freezing Broly in place as he chops him in the neck. These days training with Goku were Broly's first moments having experienced a power as overwhelming as Ultra Instinct, as he begins to tremble and falls to the ground back to his base form now. Goku approaches him, reaching his hand out to his friend, helping him to his feet. "Man, Broly," Goku says to him, "your improvement is amazing." "Kakarot," Broly replies, "how can I be like you and use that power?" "Well," Goku replies, "you already know all about Super Saiyan and Rage." He transforms back into Super Saiyan Blue to give a better explanation as he goes on to say, Super Saiyan Blue is the result of ki control. You have to hold in all your power, and if you have enough to match a Super Saiyan God, you can become a Super Saiyan Blue. Broly tries his hardest to understand as Goku further explains that all of this is very difficult to do if you haven't mastered the emotional and physical strain of Super Saiyan yet. Again, you need lots of control and a calm, cool, and collected attitude in battle, which you still have a lot of trouble with, he says to Broly. "I think I've mostly mastered it," Goku says, "but because I'm not a god, trying to hold in all this energy in blue destroys my body from the inside over long periods of time. Maybe one day I'll be strong enough to contain all this energy with ease," he says, as he powers back down to his base form now. But Broly notices that he did skip over something. "Well, what about what you just did just now?" he asks. "Oh, you mean Ultra Instinct," Goku replies. In a bright flash of light, Goku goes from his base form to Mastered Ultra Instinct, displaying beyond impressive control over this form now. He explains to Broly that he spent years as a martial artist, learning from every fighter he could until his own body was purely a fighting machine. When I first met Lord Beerus, he says, it moved for the first time on its own, but when I let go of my emotions and thoughts, my body takes over and does the thinking for me, he says. So this is the result of martial arts, which is what I've been trying to teach you now, he explains. This is by far the hardest technique I've ever learned, Goku says to him, but it is the ultimate tool for a martial artist. It's the opposite of a Super Saiyan. Rather than giving into your emotions, you let go of them completely. When can I do that, Broly asks, amazed at this level of power that he'd never known existed before. Well, Goku says, powering back down to base form, I think you better learn to control that massive energy of yours first, Broly. Honestly, if you can do that, you might not even need this technique. I see, Broly says, as he ponders the journey ahead of him now. This is when he remembers the senzu bean Goku gave him for purposes just like this that he chose to save for another day as we return to the present day's battlefield. Above Broly floats Chile and the other spectators as she looks down at him, still worried about him. She reaches into her jacket pocket and pulls out the senzu bean that Goku had given them before as she tries to figure out just how to get this to Broly without exactly getting in trouble. So, the Grand Priest says, speaking up to Chile now, would you like to give that senzu bean to Broly? It's okay, we expected as much, he says, and in the snap of a finger, he teleports Chile right to Broly's side. She pleads with him to say something, anything, probably forgetting that his jaw has been broken multiple times now, as all he can do is look in her direction really. She places the senzu bean in her mouth since Broly is unable to move or chew, and chews it for him, feeding it to him that way. Back on the battlefield, Goku has turned his back on Jiren now as he watches Broly recover before them, as Jiren gets back to his feet now as well. All of a sudden, a blinding flash of light erupts from Broly as his energy is restored, but something else is happening here now as well. This light illuminates the entire side of the galaxy that their battle occupies, and as it fades away, we're shocked to see just what's happened to Broly now. After taking the senzu bean, Broly has regained his power, but simultaneously, possibly thanks to having clung to his life only seconds prior, has ascended to something far beyond what he was before. As an orb of light floats in front of his chest, Broly has transformed into his version of a Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan, having gained better control than ever before over his power through the course of this battle thanks to both Jiren and Goku. As his eyes open back up, Broly sets his sights back on Jiren, having risen to the level of the gods themselves through more than just raw power now, as the chapter and a short rematch between Goku and Jiren come to an end. Broly stands before everyone in his new form. Chile is stunned to see this more refined looking version of him now, absent of the anger he possessed prior, as she stutters, "Broly?" In a very familiar pose, Broly turns to look at her and just smirks, signifying that he is alright and in complete control right now. Chile is delighted that he's alright as Whis utters, "Could this be the true legendary Super Saiyan God?" Beerus agrees that Broly definitely looks like a deity right now, but the question is, can his body handle containing all of that energy? Well, this fight could have served to toughen him up and get his body to this point, Whis says. Broly isn't normal in terms of energy. That amount of power, it's hard to imagine that any mortal could contain it. As Broly turns his attention to the battlefield, Goku disappears and then reappears right in front of him, as Broly displays a much more slender build in this form. Goku examines his new form and then bursts with excitement as he exclaims, "Broly, this is amazing! You really did it! You gained control, I knew you could do it." Beerus comments that it is extraordinary that Broly could pull off something like this. He jumps straight into what appears to be the mastered variation of Super Saiyan Blue, he says. His control over divine energy seems to rival even Goku's. If you ask me, Whis comments, it's more of a beautiful cyan color. At any rate, he goes on, it seems Broly was pushed by the motivation to impress his master. Why does that seem so familiar, Beerus says, as he hazily remembers another Saiyan with such devotion elsewhere. It's also a good thing that the wound on his back was healed, Whis says. It probably would have been much more difficult to contain all that energy with a hole in his body. That probably stifled Broly's motivation to even try this before now as well. This is when Velmont's jaw drops as he draws attention to the massive orb of energy centered on Broly's torso, asking, "What is that light?" Whis explains that the Super Saiyan transformation requires them to concentrate their energy to one spot in the body. The god forms are the product of raising their ki while containing it, creating a concentration effect of sorts. So that light on his chest is a mass of concentrated energy, so much so that it's visible to the naked eye. Although it does seem that the area Broly is storing his energy in is a bit higher than usual, as it's typically center mass. "That's ridiculous," Velmont roars, refusing to believe another mortal to be stronger than Jiren. This is when Jiren finally begins to get back to his feet, saying, "So this power, it's all your own and greater than before without having to rely on Ultra Instinct." "Let's test that out," he says as Broly readies himself. Jiren begins to charge, but is interrupted by someone stopping the fight before it even begins. Goku stops them momentarily as he asks Chile if she still has that other sensu bean he gave to them, to which she replies, yeah. He does ask for it back as they assume it to be for him, but of course, knowing Goku, this is almost never the case. Goku pitches the sensu bean to Jiren as he catches it, causing Chile to erupt in confusion with Goku's antics. However, no one, not even Broly seemingly, have any problem with this, as Broly actually looks eager for Jiren to be back at full strength. Jiren's full power immediately returns to him, as even he's shocked at the sensu bean's regenerative speeds. Goku places his hand on Chile's shoulder in order to teleport the both of them out of the way of the battle, as Goku says, "Alright, you guys are doing great, and Broly, remember, no matter what happens, I'm proud of you," he says. Broly sees his teacher and Chile off with a smile as they instant transition back to the spectators. Ultra Instinct Jiren and legendary Super Saiyan God Broly begin their battle once more, with Jiren wielding blinding speed once again in his charge at Broly, whose calm demeanor doesn't change a bit. Jiren unleashes a devastating barrage of high-speed Ultra Instinct attacks at Broly, again as Broly just stands there, almost as if ignoring the attacks. "Broly, what are you doing?" Goku yells at him. "Why are you just standing there?" Jiren is moving at a high speed that would dazzle you to the point where it could seem like a blur to a certain degree, Whis states. "It'll feel like you're blind for a moment as he escapes your sight." Broly, however, is unmoved by any of Jiren's attacks really, even stating that his strikes tickle more than anything, as Whis notices the problem within Jiren's attacks now as well. He continues to attack with each strike doing negligible damage, if any at all, to Broly. Jiren has seen a power yet again beyond his own, he says, and this time without relying on divine technique. This is something natural to Broly. All of a sudden, a crushing punch is delivered square to the face of Jiren through all of his high-speed attacks, so quick that not even he could detect it. In that one single punch, Jiren is sent soaring at a speed that simply causes him to look as if he vanished in midair. Broly's power rids him of the need to rely on Ultra Instinct now, and all that power belongs to his very being. This is causing Jiren to have trouble letting go of his emotions, Whis says. The spectators are shocked that Jiren simply seemed to vanish from a single punch, as even Velmont asks, "Where is Jiren?" Vados comments that it seems like he was sent light years away from that punch, almost like a shooting star. "This is starting to remind me of the sparring sessions back home," Whis says joyfully. Ultra Instinct is of course the standard for us back home, and yet, we still must hone our strengths and grow. It doesn't stop there. Broly readies himself knowing the battle isn't over yet, and almost as if right on cue, a light shows itself getting closer and closer back to the battlefield. Jiren propels himself at a blinding speed back at Broly, however, his punch, even with so much power and speed behind it as well as Ultra Instinct, doesn't even budge Broly. Jiren looks up at his opponent stunned as he wonders, was relying on that form so much a mistake? As he backs off of Broly, he begins to tremble as the magnitude of the gap in their power now, even with Ultra Instinct, finally starts to set in. This energy, this power, he says, it was all yours naturally? "Hey Jiren," Goku barks from behind them as Jiren turns around. "Have you ever tried to hold in all of that ki that you have and raise it to see what happens?" he asks. "Honestly, your energy is so thick that it literally radiates like heat. Even Broly doesn't have something like that going on. If you can contain and control all that power, your power, I bet you could do something pretty special, he says to Jiren. Jiren drops his head in humility as he tells Goku, I wanted you to be wrong all along. When you bested me using Ultra Instinct, he goes on, I thought that only the peak of power could best me. Jiren's ki begins to calm itself as his aura grows smaller and more contrast. You believed all along that I could achieve something beyond that, Jiren says to Goku. Thank you. Thank you for believing in me and reminding me of who I really am, he says. Jiren's ki that had been calmly manifesting itself around his being has finally concentrated and condensed into something that's truly great. In a truly magnificent show of lights, Jiren's aura condenses within himself, taking Goku's advice as the burning heat of his power is calmed. As the light radiating throughout the galaxy grows smaller and smaller, it perches itself on the torso of none other than Jiren. Jiren has gone on to completely master the depths of his own power now, taking the burning heat of his power and completely controlling and containing it within himself to create this new supernova form that seems to be pretty exclusive to him. Jiren has concentrated his energy, which matches that of a supernova, Whis says, as he looks on amazed at these two warriors who have achieved legendary heights, the likes of which the gods themselves will be proud of. Supernova Jiren and Broly stand before each other before their final engagement begins, as Whis confirms that Jiren has now basically become the equivalent of a neutron star. This is the energy he's earned through the ages from intense training and many battles, Makarita says, as Jiren's eyes exude the heat of his aura. This seems much more of an appropriate power for Jiren, Whis says, laughing. Goku, you impress me more and more all the time, he says, as Goku just smirks. This is when the Grand Priest cuts in, reminding everyone that these two are still on the clock. There are still 5 minutes remaining, he says. Let's not waste any more time and commence. Broly and Jiren prepare for battle once more, with both of them assuming their fighting stances. The scars from this very battle apparent on both of their bodies, but it all comes down to this now. As they both charge at one another, the battle begins as Broly attacks Jiren with a flurry of punches to test his speed, to which Jiren seems to dodge them all pretty easily. Jiren and Broly are colliding at a speed that rivals Mastered Ultra Instinct and the gods themselves as they go back and forth, neither really gaining the upper hand on the other. The look of just sheer determination, but this warm calmness these two are displaying, is resulting into a battle that threatens to shatter the very dimension of reality as Broly and Jiren slip into a realm between dimensions due to their devastating power. Neither Jiren nor Broly can help but smile as they both admire what they've done and just how far they've come in this one battle alone, as they both raise their hands in the air for their next attacks. Broly prepares a planet-sized attack akin to that one he used against Goku in the Super Broly movie, as a huge green sphere of energy forms over his head. Jiren, however, looks to match every bit of his attack as he forms a searing red and orange supernova-sized attack equal to Broly's in every way. We must watch the fight elsewhere, the Grand Priest says, with the scale of these two attacks continuing to grow. It's too dangerous to stay here. As both Broly and Jiren release their devastating full power attacks in the form of enormous ki spheres, the Grand Priest shields the spectators and, in an instant, teleports them all away to a much safer location. Once the two attacks collide, the collision between these two mammoth blasts causes a nuclear explosion within the galaxy and pretty much erases everything in sight in a blinding flash of light. The blast continues to devastate this entire half of the universe. However, Goku as well as the rest of the spectators are able to safely arrive somewhere far off in Universe 11. Once arriving in Universe 11, the spectators appear on a planet very familiar looking. Welcome, Lord Belmod, and welcome guests of the 7th universe, the Supreme Kai says. The fight was, starting to get hectic, Belmod admits, so our Lord Grand Priest thought it would be ideal to come here. Say, where can we keep watching the fight though, Goku asks, to which the Supreme Kai replies, right this way. This is when we cut to a man standing with a halo in another area of Supreme Kai's world. I didn't expect to see you here of all people, Velmont says, as he looks shocked to see this guy as well. Whoa, you must be Gishin, Goku says, as he's heard much about this guy apparently. Glad they let you watch the fight like I asked. You look strong. I am, Gishi replies. It's an honor to meet you, Son Goku. I want to thank you for reminding Jiren of what's really important and allowing me to watch this fight. I heard Jiren had learned his lesson in the Tournament of Power, and I wanted to see that myself, but it looks like his progress in power and your ability to bounce back from near death had, in a sense, spoiled him. But when you protected Broly, it reminded me of the day I protected my favorite student from danger. I'm sure Jiren remembered that too. As we cut back to being able to spectate, Jiren awaits Broly's next move as Broly again begins to concentrate an enormous amount of ki between his hands that's causing an enormous ray of light to overtake the space around them. Broly releases a gigantic ki wave from his hands that resembles a massive version of a Kamehameha almost, but this is when Jiren does something absolutely incredible. Once Goku had unlocked Ultra Instinct in the Tournament of Power, Jiren could no longer ignore him. He was forced to recognize another being with immeasurable power, and after watching Goku's battles, he takes another page from his book. Jiren creates a ki wall of his own, and as Broly's beam approaches, similarly to how Goku did against Kefla, he skates down the beam to the shock of Broly and in an instant flips over the beam and appears over him. Jiren's energy grows hotter and hotter, and his next attack takes the shape of almost a flaming hawk as he delivers a devastating punch to Broly that stuns him and sends him soaring. This attack also seems to come with an even more blinding level of speed as Jiren hawks down Broly, who's still flying through the air. Broly bounces back, however, and catches Jiren as Jiren stops, surprised that his attack seems ineffective still. Broly launches himself back at Jiren with a powerful punch of his own, hitting Jiren square in the gut and almost bringing him to his knees, stunning him. Jiren attempts to fight through this attack, but Broly sends him flying backwards, paralyzing him in mid-air with his attack. This is when Broly takes a page out of his epic battle with Gogeta and uses the same near finishing move that was used on him as he raises his arms into the air, lifting the blast containing Jiren higher and higher and detonating it along the way, causing a beam that can be seen in space many miles long. Back at the Supreme Kai's planet in Universe 11, everyone is in awe at just the scale of this battle even at this moment, but Chile only wishes for Broly's survival, and Velmod, the same for Jiren. Goku assures them not to worry though, as he seems to have some type of faith in a good outcome, as Gishi watches the fight as well. Back in space, Broly stands before the devastation his last attack caused. However, still knowing that Jiren is out there, he waits. "This is getting fun," he says, turning around. "You're strong." Behind him, Jiren, although battered from that last attack, hasn't really dipped in power at all, as well as Broly throughout this fight, as he tells him he's just getting started. This is when Broly raises a hand above him, with Jiren taking notice of this as well. He creates a Soul Punisher and dashes at Jiren at full speed, almost as if using it like a Rasengan, and I thought that was really cool. He lunges at Jiren, but Jiren doesn't break focus at all and actually uses his own hand to collide with Broly's attack. Jiren, this was pretty beast by Jiren right here. He grabs the orb right in Broly's hand as Broly is stunned at Jiren's power and determination, and with Jiren overflowing with power, he slams shut Broly's hand, shattering the attack. Broly attempts to use his other hand to attack Jiren, but Jiren locks grips with him, the two now engaging in pretty much a game of mercy to see who's stronger. Jiren's glare attempts to wear down Broly as he's locked in his grasp, as Gishi says that it seems Jiren's love of fighting has finally become as pure as Goku's. As they spectate the battle with the two engaged in a death grip, he says that Jiren has finally become truly pure of both heart and mind. With the two continuing to clash, Jiren's glare along with Broly's endless power, along with the immediate power struggle, begin to shatter reality again. Jiren looks like he's starting to waver a little bit, however Broly maintains his calm spirit, and this is when a huge explosion begins to become imminent. Broly's power soars rapidly as his aura becomes more and more intense by the second, and this is when Whis says that they may actually have a problem now. Broly's concentrated power is expanding at an extreme rate, he says, and to compete with that, Jiren is concentrating his energy more and more. If Broly's energy comes into contact with Jiren's right now, it'll be the equivalent of a big bang, so to speak. there will be enough energy from that one explosion alone to fill an entire universe or maybe even beyond. Beerus scoffs. Only a god could withstand that much power and not suffer the consequences themselves. The explosion may wipe out all 12 universes and the very fabric of space and time, Whis says, worrying. This is when the spectators begin to lose it as well, as not only did nobody know that this would turn into a death match, but now the very multiverse is in danger of exploding as Goku's jaw drops. Well, Goku, Beerus says, it looks like you pushed your students a bit too far. Goku begs Zeno to stop the battle and just call it a draw before the very realm of everything becomes collateral, but the Grand Priest denies, saying that the fight continues and if need be, he'll contain the blast himself. I suggest you follow your own advice, Goku, and stop worrying, he says. Jiren and Broly launch themselves at one another one final time, both at the very pinnacle of might respectively, with everything riding on this final punch. In an absolutely piercing crack, Broly's fist rips cleanly through Jiren's torso, but Jiren's fist meets Broly with the same fate, piercing directly through the sand. Both fighters shriek in agony with their nuclear powers colliding, causing an explosion that begins to wipe out space faster than the speed of light. The Grand Priest immediately takes action as the explosion threatens to grow, as he admits that a battle that produces this much energy is rare indeed, but he goes on to activate his power and contain the space that they fought in. As the Grand Priest holds out an orb before him, the fate of Broly and Jiren still seems to be a mystery, as the only thing left of their battle seems to be the galaxy itself, with the Grand Priest commenting, "Most satisfactory." But what really happens if you try to contain the Big Bang like that? What just happened, Goku says, shocked. That was so unreal. What happened to Broly and Jiren? Both Broly and Jiren, the Grand Priest starts, have been obliterated. Everyone's jaw drops as the worst case scenario comes true from this legendary fight, with Goku now seeming to blame himself a little bit from the look on his face. Due to the pure nature of the end result of their battle, the Grand Priest continues, Jiren and Broly have both earned a place highest in the upper realm. I shall now call upon the heavens to bring forth both fighters amongst us. A blinding light begins piercing through the clouds as the spectators look on anxiously, and then, accompanied by halos, two beings appear from the light. With the divine power of the Grand Priest calling upon the highest order, with a wave of his wand, Broly and Jiren are restored with their halos disappearing, indicating that they have been resurrected. Chile immediately rushes Broly once he appears again before them, tears in her eyes, as she thought he'd been completely destroyed as a result of that insane battle. However, there is still one matter at hand. So who will get the wish from the Super Dragon Balls, Velmont asks now. Well, the Grand Priest says, since it was a draw, they'll settle this the only way possible, I guess. Rock, paper, scissors, Goku says excitedly. However, I think the others had something else in mind. This is when Jiren takes notice of someone in the crowd that wasn't there at the beginning as he walks up to him. Master? Jiren stutters. But how? How is it possible that you're here? Well, Goku cuts in. I heard about what happened to your master and how he was killed by a demon and how he was just doomed to float through space as a spirit for eternity. After I visited you, I felt Gishin's spirit trying to tell me something. He told me that he wanted to be free of his fate and pass on. So I asked if I could gather the Super Dragon Balls and save him from that fate. The Grand Priest was so intrigued that they did it for me. I didn't have to do a thing. Then I requested he get to see you in action, Jiren. I wanted to surprise you. It's good to see you again, Jiren, Gishin says after a while. I wish it was under better circumstances, though. I hope you learned your lesson from Son Goku. When you almost killed Broly back then, I saw the same villain that took my life. That maniac had the very same survival of the fittest attitude. I never want to see that from you again. I know you consider yourself a hero of justice, Jiren, he goes on, and I know you thought due to Broly's seemingly uncontrollable nature, if he was killed that it may be for the best. But as soon as virtue is known as something good, it becomes evil. Realizing this, a true hero performs effortlessly without concern for his life over others, and practices wordless teachings through his deeds. That is why Son Goku is such a successful teacher. Even though that isn't necessarily his primary goal, he goes on, the hero inspires the vitality of all lives, good and evil, without always being so consciously aware. He's had the same effect on you. Your pride was no longer fuel for your ego, Jiren, but fuel for your advancement, and the advancement of others. He converted your personal pride, the result of your great power, into the pride of a martial artist. It seems Son Goku has this effect on almost everyone he comes in contact with, Gishin says. Always remember this, Jiren. A superior hero is not conscious of being virtuous, hence is truly virtuous. An inferior hero performs for the purpose of virtue, hence he is not virtuous. When you do this, you put your ego and yes, your pride in your opinion and your perspective over the world. That always ends badly. Have faith. Much like Goku, if you keep doing things for the benefit of all, the trials you face will just be a test of your virtue, and you will always be rewarded with the best possible outcome for you and your opponent, who is only a fool of pure evil and pride to reject this lesson. Because with it, they themselves can also grow power beyond what they ever could imagine. Jiren immediately bows to his master, apologizing for his actions earlier as he drops his head, but Gishin immediately puts his hand on his shoulder. "It's okay, Jiren," he says with a smile. "I truly am impressed with your power. I am proud of you. And you should be proud of yourself. You've mastered my final lesson. Even if the stakes seem extremely high, it is always worth it to give your opponents a chance to improve themselves. That results in friendships and kinships that provide for amazing power." "And hey," Goku says, grabbing Broly's attention, "don't forget, Broly, you've made me proud too. But if it wasn't for that kiss from Chile, or whatever you want to call it, you might have been in some real trouble," he says as the two blush embarrassingly. "You as well, Jiren," he continues. "You are super impressive." "Thank you, Goku," Jiren replies. "You truly are a master." Goku gives his gratitude to Zeno and the Grand Priest for allowing him to set up this kind of thing and cooperating with them, but Chile hasn't forgotten that one of them easily could have lost and things wouldn't have turned out so well in the end. "I knew everything would work out," Goku replies. "I made sure of it." "Goku came to us with this idea to grow your powers," the Grand Priest says, "and help you learn from each other. But just like in the Tournament of Power, you needed motivation. So for it to be worth Zeno's time, it needed to be as entertaining for them as it was beneficial to Goku. Make no mistake," the Grand Priest says, "Zeno would have erased the loser indefinitely. But I also would have used my powers to rewind small sections of time and space to restore them immediately. If the fight ended in good spirits and without murderous intent, that is. We also allowed Goku to steer the both of you in the right direction as well for this reason. That was his stipulation. He had good faith that the fight would end this way if you both entered the battle with a pure heart and mind. That's why it may have seemed like Goku was saving Broly, but he was actually saving the both of you. This was a true test of your virtue, and had you failed, you both would have ceased to exist. But if you choose to be pure regardless of the stakes, the Omniverse always had this reward waiting for you. It is the reward of true virtue." "Now," the Grand Priest finishes, "say your goodbyes before I return everyone home." Gishin approaches Jiren to give him his final words before his soul is laid to rest for good, as he tells him to remember what they spoke of and he will reap the rewards of his virtue in life and after. "Now I'm off to enjoy my own," he says. "Goodbye, my favorite student." As Gishin disappears, a strong sense of closure overcomes Jiren as he too seems to have found solace. "Broly," he says finally, "you may have the wish with the Super Dragon Balls. All I ever wanted," he continues, "is to make my master proud, and I've done it." Broly smirks as even he too is proud of himself and Jiren continues telling Goku that, as far as for him, in the very near future they'll be continuing their rematch as well, to which Goku replies that he can hardly wait. Thank you guys so much. This concludes the iconic multiversal battle of Super Broly vs Jiren. However, the story doesn't necessarily end here. With the Super Dragon Balls, Broly wishes his father Paragus back to life, and the Grand Priest returns everyone back to their home worlds. As Broly and his father reunite after his death in the battle on Earth, Paragus moves to planet Vampa and stays with Broly, Chile, and Limo, and Broly and the others tell him all about the events that have happened between then and now. They even threw some new faces on the drawing in the cave as a way to celebrate. Off in Universe 11, however, Jiren had finally cast off the effects the demon had on him and his raging pride and put the terrible events of his past behind him for good. On Earth, as Goku suits up for another training session, he's just as excited as we are to see where his next adventure will lead he and his friends, but in the next story coming soon, a long-awaited grudge match.